Welcome to the Ferra TechCast. We'll bring all things science, engineering, technology, and innovation. Today, we're joined by Lee Stewart, a corporate sustainability strategist and author of How to Build Sustainability in Your Business Strategy, who brings over 20 years of experience driving environmental responsibility at major organizations like Fujitsu and Fonterra. With a background that spans developing award-winning sustainability technology solutions and service as a climate reality presenter, Lee specializes in helping companies transform sustainability from a compliance exercise into a core competitive advantage. His work focuses on practical strategies that deliver measurable ROI while addressing critical challenges like Scope 3 emissions and climate-related financial disclosures. So, Lee, welcome to the show.
Great, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
All right. So, can you start by telling us what a sustainability strategy actually is and why it's a business necessity and not just a PR move?
Yeah, sure. Great question. Thanks. And look, um, sustainability strategy is something that I've worked on for 20 odd years, and embedding it into business strategy is where it really matters. So I've worked on companies where we've been a standalone side function as part of a large corporate and trying to work on a sustainability strategy that's not embedded into the corporate strategy. That just doesn't work over long periods of time. You start getting disconnection between what the business is doing and what sustainability should be doing. And in the end, you get drowned out and you become irrelevant. So what I've spent my a good part of a decade is thinking about how do we embed sustainability into everyday company practices? How does it become part of the corporate strategy? How does it become a value add to that company? How does it help them do amplify what they do in terms of creating more revenue, attracting more customers, building more products, and so forth. So I've really spent a lot of time looking at this and how do you integrate sustainability into those thinking processes. So that's really what we're looking at here. And when I see that done well, companies just create new markets, opportunities, growth of revenue, brand recognition, competitive advantage. So there's lots of benefits that come from doing this properly.
Great. So, you worked with massive companies. So, tell us, what's
Yeah.
the biggest misconceptions that CEOs have about integrating sustainability into their core business?
Yeah, I think the key disconnect, not just CEOs and the boards that I've been in front of, is that it's a massive costly exercise and that it's a distraction or it's going to cost too much. We don't have enough time. We don't have the bandwidth to do it now. It's something we can put off. That's totally incorrect. It's a missed opportunity if you're thinking that way. So that's the biggest misconception, that it's a cost, it's a burden on the business. Why should we do this? For those people thinking it that way, I would just simply go out and ask some of your customers, go and see what your competitors are doing, go and have a look around the world if you're in a global company, across your supply chain, consumers, and start seeing what's going on and ask the specific questions around sustainability.
Amazing. So, what does it mean to monetize sustainability? And also, can you share a quick example of how uh, sustainability or of how monetizing sustainability generates a real ROI?
Yeah, look, the simplest thing that I look at straight away is energy. And I'm sure where you are and your listeners around the world, energy prices are only going one way and they're always going up. So have a look at energy efficiency of your business. If you're a large energy user, such as a manufacturer, logistics type company, or you have large office spaces or use large data centers, definitely energy efficiency is the biggest untapped potential that has sustainability benefits because in most cases, energy you use has a carbon emission output to it. So that's one easy thing. And one of those simplest things I've done is in a warehouse. upgrade the lighting, and the payback was in 38 days of that, and it's saving that company that I used to work for at Fujitsu, saving them excess of 50K a month, a year, sorry. Similar when you look at data centers, I did a program there where we did containment, so hot aisle, cold aisle containment more effectively. The payback was measured in days of that, and that was, we're talking in hundreds of thousands of dollars of savings. So have a look at where your biggest energy use is and see where there's an opportunity there to increase efficiency. Simplest thing you might look at, if you're operating a large fleet of cars, you might want to transition them to EVs because they're cheaper to run. There might be a more upfront cost, but the way you might want to finance that is they're cheaper to run, less maintenance and so forth on that, if they're applicable to the kind of unique use you need. The other one, which takes a bit more thought and is the untapped of monetizing sustainability, is looking at your customer and where does money come into your business and what do your customers care about? And if they care about sustainability, if you're servicing a large corporate, they might even have a sustainability report. And in there, they might disclose, we're trying to reduce these emissions, or we've got these challenges. We're trying to look at our areas around modern slavery. We're trying to look at our supply chain or waste and so forth. And is there a way that you can support that customer in meeting those goals with the services, or maybe a joint venture you might want to work together on? That's where the ROI becomes really significant, because you might win a new contract or extend a new contract or design a new product together or service. And that's where the real benefit comes from.
Wonderful. So let's talk about your book for a while, how to build sustainability into your business strategy. So what was the key insights or experience that made you decide to write your book?
Yeah, first of all, it was really hard. I struggled. It was 3 years of pain. It's, think of like having a big university assignment over you the whole time as you're trying to write this book. But the key driver for me was frustration. I've spent 20 years of going to conferences, and if I turn up to a conference today, I think you could be saying the same stuff we said 20 years ago. There might be just different people in the room. So I'm sick of the talk. I'm over the talk. I'm about action. So I wrote this book to be read in a weekend, 3 or 4 hours investment of your time. On a Monday, Tuesday, you can ask questions in your business. And by Friday, you've actually made one little change. I don't care what it is, for something to change. It's designed to provoke your thoughts and to give you an easy pathway to making change and doing things a little bit differently and building upon that over time. And then slowly you embed it into part of your culture, part of your strategy, and you're reaping some magnificent benefits there. So it's designed as a business book. It's not full of academic jargon or the tree hugging speak of environmentalist type stuff. It's a practical business book.
Amazing. So you say that most ESG strategies fail. In your experience, what is the most common reason that they fall apart?
Yeah, normally in a company you might hire a sustainability person, and you think job's done. There's so many times when I've gone into meetings, even in large multinational companies, where they go, "Okay, Lee's here, we've got that covered," and I'm expected to take on everything from the waste, pollution, carbon emissions, modern slavery, customer inquiries, governments, regulation, all the whole thing, suppliers, and so forth. When it should be embedded across the business, across all the executive leaders. So that's where the final part of my book, I talk about the first of all, the confidence. You've got to understand what the global macro issues are, such as climate change or modern slavery, and what the relevance is to your business. Then I'd look at the commitment. What do you actually stand for? Are you going to set some targets? And then the final piece, which is where most companies fall over, they set a great target, write a glossy report, announce it to the world. They forget about the consistency piece, and that's the governance of that. So it's not reliant on one person. It's reliant on all the leaders of the business have some role and responsibility to play, and they're held accountable either quarterly or annually, and they actually contribute to that sustainability targets and goals of the organization.
Great. So what are scope 3 emissions and why are they such a critical, challenging piece of the puzzle for companies?
Yeah, so a brief sort of lesson if we track back how we measure carbon emissions globally, and there's a greenhouse gas protocol standard that's been worked on for decades, and we call it as scope 1, 2, and 3 emissions. So if I took it scope 1, for you, I just describe this as generally things you burn, like fossil fuels. So the petrol or diesel in your car is scope 1 that you buy and you burn it. If you have a coal-fired power station or you burn gas for hot water, that's your scope 1 emissions. Scope 2 are emissions that when we plug our mobile phone into charge in the wall, these are electricity emissions that are coming to you, and some of them might be coal-fired power stations, solar, wind farms, nuclear, whatever. They'll have a carbon element to each kilowatt of energy you use. So that's scope 2. Where we get it interesting and where it gets quite hard to measure is scope 3. And there are 15 categories of scope 3. I'm not going to go through them all, but think of this as all the emissions downstream in your supply chain and upstream. So say, for instance, you make mobile phones. All the emissions in mining that, shipping the products to you, to your manufacturing site, and then downstream, the use of that product and disposal, that's all the emissions across your supply chain. So where this gets interesting is around the world, companies like here in Australia, New Zealand, UK, California in the US, the EU, they're all starting to put on mandatory climate disclosures on companies. Now, there's a number of factors they look at as climate risks and opportunities, but one key thing is they're looking at is measuring your carbon emissions and also setting science-based targets, but also looking at scope 3. And so if you supply a large company, it's only a matter of time you'll be asked, what's your carbon emissions of the product you're providing us? And have you set any targets around that? Now, I'm doing that right now for some of the large companies as we're going out to hundreds of their suppliers, asking these questions, because that company has set a target of trying to reduce not just scope 1, 2, but also now scope 3 emissions. And the only way they're going to reduce the scope 3 emissions is by working with their suppliers. So you can see how this flows downstream to the smaller people in the organizations and companies that supply larger companies. And those that are going to win are those that are going to have a good climate policy, emission reduction, look at innovation to reduce emissions. And these larger companies will be making decisions on their future suppliers, number of factors, including price and product and quality and so forth. But the amount of carbon will be a factor as well. And it already is a factor for some of these companies. And working with those that can reduce that to hopefully zero, but that'll give them a competitive advantage as well. So hopefully you see there's a sort of ecosystem of scope 1, 2, and now 3 emissions is causing lots of other people who never thought they needed to start measuring their carbon emissions and start thinking about that more effectively.
How does your experience as a climate reality presenter shape how you advise businesses today?
Yeah, so I was very fortunate to be one of 300 people selected by Al Gore, who's the was the ex vice president of the United States, and a very interesting video came out around 2008 around the inconvenient truth around the carbon emissions and so forth. And to be trained for 4 days by Al Gore to deliver that climate change presentation, and I've delivered it over hundreds of times now to corporates and so forth. It's helped elevate my conversations that I can have, not just in the boardroom, but I've done it at schools, universities, and so forth. It helps ground me as well to help other people understand the imperative of climate change, but also help them with what they can do about it and the actions. And that sort of led me to write the book, of course. But I've also been fortunate enough to be a mentor. So I've trained hundreds of other people to deliver this presentation. Been on stage with Al Gore in Brisbane a few years ago. I met many wonderful people from around the world. I've also met a lot of leaders in the Pacific, where I do a lot of work around Tonga, Fiji, and Samoa around climate change adaptation and work. And these sort of countries really need it the most because sea level rise and other issues are really impacting their countries and their way of living. So I feel it's really important that people understand the science effectively There's a lot of politics around this, unfortunately, a lot of bad politics, I'd say. But if you understand the science, um, what we're doing to the planet, hopefully with that grounding of confidence of information, you can actually make change. So that's why I really enjoyed doing these presentations.
Wonderful. So, tell us, for the business executive who picks up your book, what's one actionable takeaway that you hope they get from it?
Yeah, look, I ask really upfront in that first chapter, and it's a really reflection question. And in the book, there are certain exercises I want the readers to do, and I want your listeners to probably do this, and you do this yourself. I mean, if you think about the organization, company you work for today, if that did not exist, would you be missed? Would the environment or society or community miss you? And I often ask this in boardrooms, and I'm often greeted with a lot of pause and blank expressions, and then I comfortable with the silence because I want people to really think about it. And then if you would be missed, why would you be missed? And would someone else just easily take your place? And a lot of companies will say, oh, yeah, well, someone will take our place, but they wouldn't care as much as we do. Well, why do you care more? And what is your secret? What's your opportunity there? And what's the risk and so forth? So that's a really good reflection question that I ask very early in sort of some of my consulting clients as well, to have a real think about, would you really be missed? And write down certain things. It's a really good way of framing your purpose as well on the back of that.
Great. So, tell us, um, how can technology be a lever for real sustainability impact beyond just reducing a company's own footprint?
Yeah, look, technology is a huge enabler that I think still largely untapped. And obviously reducing your own carbon footprint is important, but looking at the products and services you could provide to your customers and society, we're just looking at, say, the transition to electric vehicles from fossil fuels. That sort of technology is great, and it's improving all the time. Cars have greater range, the batteries are getting better, and so forth around that. That gives me great encouragement when you now look at, just heard on a podcast that, places like Shanghai and China are now running on more EVs, these less air pollution. These are great innovations that need to be embraced. I think with the advent of AI, there's more ways of understanding of products and measurement of that scope 3 emissions. There's going to be more ways of policing supply chain impacts and so forth, whether it's modern slavery, emissions, products that go into that. The innovation side of things is really, really exciting. And I think there's a lot more things to come.
Awesome. So tell us, what is a virtual chief sustainability officer, and why is this model becoming so popular?
Yeah, look, I've been working for about 4 companies now as a virtual chief sustainability officer. Typically, these are organizations that are medium to large that don't have a sustainability function, but are now starting to get asked questions from customers or regulation and so forth. They probably know they need to hire someone in that role, but they're not sure where to start. What I do is I go in and help set up the governance side of things. So help out set up the strategy, talk with the board and the executives and understand what matters most to them and design the sustainability strategy specifically for that organization, work on the policies, the targets, the governance model. And then I look to hire or train an existing employee in that organization to take over that function. So it's a handover. And I work with them for probably 3 or 4 months as well. And then they're generally on their own, but I'm always there as a phone a friend support. So the reason why it's so popular is it takes out the risk of hiring someone new in your organization who might not be good at setting up a sustainability strategy, might be good at running something. It also is more cost effective because you're going to get an outcome working with me and my team within 3 to 6 months. And then ideally, you find someone inside the business who knows that business well, who is well connected and can help run that, or in some cases, I've helped recruit and hire and then onboard that person. So it's a really more effective way of taking out the risk, the costs, and delivering greater outcomes than just hiring a team straight into a new organization and a new role. So it's working really well, and I'm looking to, and I'm growing that side of the business more than any other side. So yeah, it's really good.
What's one practical first step that a small or medium-sized business can take to start building a more sustainable business plan,
Yeah.
a more meaningful sustainability plan?
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. There's two things if I can steal two, but one would be to understand your impacts. And this could be environmental or social, and these are negative and positive. So, for instance, you might be working in a remote area and you hire a lot of local community people. That's a really good positive thing. One of the negatives might be that you use a lot of fossil fuels, but try and understand what that impact is and try and measure that to start with. And then the second thing I would do is understand what your customers are or your end customer um, wants or needs are or expectations are around sustainability. And you might need to read a sustainability report. You might need to just go ask a few people, what do you think about sustainability? What are you doing? Have that conversation with where the money comes into your organization to understand that. And then you might get some insights of what you might need to work on and so forth there. But be curious is the key thing I would say to anyone starting out on this. Um, read, get up to speed on the key issues, but go out there and ask some questions and have conversations.
Wonderful. So, tell us a bit about greenwashing. So, how do you help companies navigate the risk of greenwashing and ensure their sustainability claims are genuine?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so look, greenwashing is a big thing here in Australia. We've seen a lot of clampdowns, a lot of fines being issued, and the multi-million-dollar fines for companies that are overstating sustainability claims or making things that aren't true. Um, a, a really good example I've seen recently was, if I could talk about it, there's baby wipes, and they say they're biodegradable baby wipes, but if you actually use them to actually clean a baby, they're not biodegradable because they've got human waste on it. So for the original purpose, it wasn't biodegradable. So these are sort of stories that come out there. And so what I do is I work with a lot of companies about greenwashing, have a look at their marketing material, educate their marketing team and legal team about what is a claim you can make. Any claim you make, you've really got to look at a third party validation, whether it's a certification or some other third party vetting. And I also, when I look at some of the marketing material, I take a persona, say I'm a Greenpeace activist or a NGO activist. What am I going to ask the question, or what's my comment on social media going to be about your product and your claim? So have that persona of linking. What is that perception? If you can't back it up, I wouldn't be making that claim at all. Um, but what you want to do with anything of greenwashing is look at the company first. If you've just got one little product that you think that's really awesome, but you don't have a company strategy on sustainability or an emission target, I'd be very cautious about going out there and saying this product is the greenest of the world because it's made by a company that obviously doesn't believe in that because it doesn't have their own public targets and so forth. So have a look at that on a holistic view. And before you go out to market with any green claim, I'd just test it with a few people, even random people who don't know the company. Say, what do you think about this? If you were a Greenpeace activist, how would you look at this? What would you say?
Interesting. So, you have worked with the Kingdom of Tonga on pro bono strategy. So, what did that experience teach you about the global inequity in facing climate change?
Yeah, and I think small island developing states, known as SIDS, have got such a disadvantage on the global stage. And I was part of the Tongan delegation at the climate conference in Dubai, COP28, a few years ago. And you see the delegations of larger companies have 30 people strutting around, getting to places. They've got all the golf carts, they've got all the security and all that stuff. And here is the Tongan delegation trying to just walk and getting lost and trying to get around all the small island states trying to and these are the countries that are most impacted by climate change. These are the countries that are now looking to buy land in other countries so they can relocate their population so they have a future. These are the people that go to their burial grounds and see their ancestors' bones washed away. Um, these are the people that have cyclones happening once every year now, where they used to have 5 or every 10 years, that are totally wiping out their infrastructure. So that's just, and when I went there and sort of saw that firsthand, I just wanted to scream and say, "This is wrong. This is wrong." And when I go to Tonga, and I've been there a few times, and I see, especially when I go to their landfill, and I see global brands send their products there, and some of them say they send it, indirectly through other distributors, but there are global brands in the landfill talking aluminium cans, plastic and stuff, and there's no recycling, glass, and no care about how the recycling goes. It all goes to one big landfill. And for an island that's running out of space, it just screams of total inequity to me. So I've been working with the Kingdom of Tonga to try and think about how a circular economy could work on the smaller islands and the big island, how they can reduce the waste coming in, and how they can work with some of these global brands to first of all stop bringing your crap into the country. But if you're going to bring it in, be responsible for the end of life of that product. So these are real key issues that are core to my being, actually. And when I go to the Pacific, I just see there's a lot of opportunity there to actually make a difference. And I get invigorated by helping them out as much as I can. And yeah, and I just see, hopefully we can get there, but they've got some really big challenges coming up. I'm not talking 5 or 10 years. The next 2 or 3 years are going to be critical for them as well.
Great. So, Lee, I got one more question for you. So, I normally like to ask this question to all the guests I interview here on this podcast. So, tell us, what does innovation mean to you, and how does it relate to your line of work in the context of building a sustainable future?
Yeah, so innovation means to me is challenging the norms and thinking differently. And innovation can come in so many different ways. I think a lot of people think, especially the engineering and technology, think, oh, it's a new tech innovation and stuff like that. But for me, sometimes innovation might be just starting your general meeting with an open question. It's just something different, trying to change it up to try get something new. So, and then how it relates to my business and what I do. Without it, we won't survive as a species. It's that fundamental. We need to innovate our way out of the problem we've created with this use of fossil fuels, the issue of climate change, the global issues of so many different things, of all the sustainable development goals, all 17 of them. We need to innovate our way out of them. And that's not just looking for a technology solution, but that's probably, to my earliest point, is having a different conversation, looking at the change process differently, and then incrementally improving over time.
Amazing. So, tell us, where can listeners find you or get your book or just generally connect with you?
Yeah, sure. So you see it behind me, but this is the book here, How to Build Sustainability Business Strategy. It's on Amazon, on Kindle. You can get it for just $5. But yeah, and you can find me at Lee Stewart, leestewart.com.au. Drop me a message, or on LinkedIn as well. Happy to hear from you. If you've got a challenge or want to pose a question, even want to book in a chat, you can do that from the website. Happy to help you out on your sustainability issues, problems, and processes for sure.
Great. So, Lee, it's been a really wonderful conversation with you today, and I'm really excited to have you on the show.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.